Hello everyone, welcome back to our next one, which is digestive system anatomy, focusing on the stomach. We're also going to talk about the major regions of the small intestine here. So we're going to start off with Charlie. And I want to point out, of course, where we're going to and from when we pull out the stomach. So I'm going to set the stomach back in. And when I do that, notice what's coming together. So we have our pyloric sphincter that's coming in contact here then with what's going to be the duodenum of the small intestine. And on the top here, if I pull this up, you can see that I have my esophageal sphincter that is coming in then, of course, where the esophagus comes through. So again, I have my esophageal sphincter, I have my pyloric sphincter. If I open those up and bring it in a little bit closer, we can see that they both have a narrowing. So again, esophageal and pyloric, really distinct down here. If you're someone that suffers from acid reflux, it's possible that you've got a little bit of a weak pyloric sphincter where it's not closing up quite as neatly as you would like, and you're getting a little backflow up from the stomach. So when we have our stomach, let's put it back together. You can see we have the greater curvature and the lesser curvature, very distinct in terms of the very different angles between the two. When we open it up, we have the rugae. Also on your study guide, all this really convoluted, thick layers and lines that you see here. So let's go back up. The next thing we want to do with the stomach is talk about the major regions of the stomach. So we're going to start up here. We have the cardia. Then we go to the fundus. Then we go into the body. And then from the body, we're going to hit the antrum, kind of where we have this little natural bend. And the antrum and the pylorus are going to be shown here. So antrum and the pylorus. Sometimes what they do is they take the pylorus and they actually break the pylorus into the antrum. So the pyloric antrum is what they'll call it, and then the pyloric canal. So sometimes you have a distinction where those words are used a little bit differently. So if I go back to Charlie, I remember that I said then that I'm going to be moving into the small intestine, so I just want to give you a recap of that. So again, if I pull this off, I remember that this is my sphincter here that's going to go into the small intestine, my pyloric sphincter. And so where that enters in here, I'm going to be at the duodenum. From that, the next region I want to identify is what makes up the bulk of the small intestine, which is going to be the jejunum. So we've got a lot of numbers for that, like number 2 is up here. And then the last one that we want to be able to identify from that part of the list is going to be the ileum. And so the ileum is down here. I'll just give you a little zoom in so you can see some of these numbers that I'm looking at. Oops, sorry about that. So number 2, jejunum. Number 3, ileum. And remember, we'll have that in the next video or previous, depending on the order you watch them in, where we have the ileocecal. So I'll talk to you about that one again to help you understand where the placement of that is. With the Crimson Man, we don't have as much to look at for this one. So the way they've done the stomach for the Crimson Man is they have made it pretty much the equivalent of a dog toy, and you really can't take it apart, unfortunately. You can still find the sphincter, so you have your esophageal and your pyloric sphincter. You still have the greater and the lesser curvature, and you can approximate the regions, because you can still see the bends and the turns. So it's really still quite doable to do that if I have this model when I'm trying to work through. So I can go from the cardia to approximately the fundus to the body into where the antrum and the pylorus are going to be and get a pretty good rough idea. From there, I can also find, of course, my duodenum. I can find my jejunum, and then I can find my ileum because I can still see where I have that ileocecal valve, which again, if you haven't watched that video, make sure you do because we'll talk about the large intestine and the connection to the small intestine in that video. All right, that is it for this part of the list. Bye.